Howdy folks, today we're going to talk about how to debug issues that happen with your Heroku deploys. There are a couple little gotchas that you can run into when doing Heroku deploys, and so it's kind of important to take a look at those and really see how you can work through them. Let's get started. So let's start off by taking a look at the example we have here. I've got a very simple Express server set up. I've got my port, I'm using the public directory for static, I've got my express.json, I've got my routes that I'm using. The routes are pretty simple. It's just a very simple login route that takes in username and actually just signs a JWT token with that username. It just ignores the password for now. In our HTML, we have a login form and a place where our token can actually go. Basically, the idea here is you log in and it just displays the token to the web page. Kind of a silly example, but it does illustrate usefully what we're trying to do. Now, in here, we've got our login form submit. We prevent default, we get our username password, and we call fetch. And we call that specific login API with our username password. If we have a bad response, then we console error whatever data came with the response. This is pretty common if you're going to log an error. And if everything's okay, we grab that token and we throw it into the token holder. So let me get this started up. Starts up okay. So to test this out, I type in username, password. I know it doesn't look very good. The visual is not the point here. I submit. And there's my token. It kind of goes off the screen by a ways. But you can see it's generating a valid JWT token. Cool. Now I have pushed this same code to Heroku. And let's take a look at that. So here is my Heroku app. Okay. I've got deployed. I've already, if I go to my activity, you can see I've already done a deploy here. So what I want to do is I want to open this app. Okay, just make sure our inspector's up so we can see what's going on, and I do the same thing. And now I get a 500 error. I get a 500 error, and this kind of unhelpful whatever this is. Well, that's script.js 19, which looks like it's actually that data. That's weird. Let's look at our network tab. Okay, we see our 500 there. Into that, I look, there's the payload, that looks right. That looks right. I look at my preview. My response is just an empty object. Well, that's kind of weird. That's not super helpful, is it? Well, let's take a look. If we look at our backend routes, which is here, error here. The error in this case is actually, it's an object, but it's a special type of object. It's actually an exception or error object. So you can't actually just pass it in like this and expect it to work. What you want to do instead is you want to actually pass the error.message, because that's the message of actually what went wrong. So let's try that. And I actually have to, let's go save that. Okay. Get error message. Commit that, and then I actually want to push it to Heroku. All right, now that that's deployed, check here, we've got our activity. We see the second deploy there. To reload this page, test. Okay, we still get an error. But now we get something more useful. Secret or private key must have a value. Now, those of you that are familiar with JWT, you probably are familiar with how to fix this at this point. Here's the thing, though. That's not an error I really should be sending to my user, huh? That's kind of a bad thing. I shouldn't be letting the user know about this. Why? Because this lets them figure out things about my server that I may not want them to. So instead of this, maybe I want to send an error of something went wrong. Okay. Let's try that. Better error. Okay, we try it again. Oh, and now let's see, put some gibberish in there. Now we can see we get a more client-friendly error, but now I also don't know what went wrong. right? Because now if a user is using this application, they're going to get this error and they're just going to contact me and say, hey, I tried to submit my username and it told me something went wrong and I don't know what went wrong. Can you fix it? And you look at it and you say, I don't know. Can I fix it? Well, if we want to find out what's going on the server, we can look at the Heroku logs. To go to the logs, you open up your application. You go all the way over to More, View Logs. You can also do this via the Heroku CLI as well. So I view logs. Okay, I can see. Looks like it started up. State change from starting to up. Bunch of stuff there. I don't see my actual issue though. And if I click this, I see that there's a post route, but I don't see the issue. What's happened here is we're swallowing the error, is what it's called. If you get something like this where you catch an error and you send a message to the user, you don't do anything with this error. The data contained in this error actually just kind of disappears into the ether, which isn't very useful. When we say the error was swallowed, sometimes you want to swallow an error deliberately. Maybe if the error isn't actually helpful and you just want to indicate something went wrong, but more often you do want to know what happened here. So in every route, whenever you catch, before you send your error to the client, you don't want to send the actual error message to the client usually. You just console.log the error. What this is going to do is whenever an error happens, this will log to your server logs, which is something that only you can see. And so it's not going to go to your users. Users aren't going to see the error, but you will. And when they come to you and they say something went wrong, you can actually go and look and see exactly what it was. So let's commit that. Don't swallow error. And push. Okay, now that's done. Look at our activity. You can see I deployed it. Go to our app. Okay. Submit. Okay, we got our error, but now we know we logged it to the server, right? So go here, we look at the logs. Well, we got something. This is clearly the bottom end of an error. Now here's the other issue. Heroku at any time only keeps the last 10 or so logs of your server. And so if you actually open your server logs, and this is true for the CLI tool as well as the web page, if you open your logs here, after the action takes place, you're not going to get a good error. What you want to do is open the log page first. So open this up, and now take the action. Same error, but now you can see the browser actually does keep track of this stuff. Now you can see that error in here. The thing about JavaScript errors is the important part is always at the top, right? Because the rest of this is usually node module libraries. This is the important bit. So now I'm going to go actually fix this. Go into my settings, JWT key, and it's going to do its restart. You can also, when it's restarting, you can also watch it here and watch it come up. Deploys also show up in here, so it's kind of useful. Now I go here, and there's my token. Howdy folks. I was editing this and I realized I forgot to cover a pretty important case. Let's say that the issue is with your actual app starting. So if I open this up and you get application error here, and you go to your logs, and you see it says state changing from starting to crashed. Like before, the error is often hidden here. So what you want to do is leave this page up, or in your CLI, leave the logs up, go to more here, and restart all dynos. What this will do is this will cause your application to restart, and any errors that were showing up on start will show up here. So I restart this. It's changed from crash to starting. It starts, and now you can see it actually tells you the error. In this case, it's just because I typed some gibberish into server.js. But basically, that's how, if you need to, if something's happening with your server and it's not actually starting, then this can be really helpful, is open the logs, restart the dynos, and then you should get your error. So, to recap, you don't want to JSON the error. That will just give an empty object. You usually want to send some message to your client that is not the actual error that went wrong. Your mileage may vary on this, depending on how your error system is set up, but you never want to swallow the error. You almost always want to console log your error so that you can actually see on the server what went wrong. When you do console log that in Heroku, make sure that you have the logs open before you take the action that caused the issue, because otherwise it gets hidden. Now, if you have something like Sumo Logic or Splunk set up, then you don't need to worry about any of this, but this is for people that don't have that and are just relying on the logs in Heroku like this. Anyway, folks, I hope this is helpful. I'll see you next time.